I'm a 19-year-old male and I have a fiance, let's call her Kay, who is 19 years old, and we have an 8-month-old little girl. All my life, my dad has basically done nothing for me. He would call to tell me and my mom where to go so I could stay with him for the summer and then ghost us, and I wouldn't hear from him again for months. He is still way behind on child support for not only me, but for 2 of my other siblings. He's always just been hateful and mean. I have tried to talk to him and have a relationship with him, especially since now I have a kid and I want him to be a part of her life. We talked and stayed civil at least for a couple of years. I used to live with him when I was around 16 and worked at the same place as him. He stole around $1,000 from me in total while I lived with him, and he would promise to pay it back or buy me something I wanted to make up for it. And I never got anything. I would help with bills and buy my own special things so he didn't have to. Me and my fiance just got a puppy about 3 months ago, and my dad called and asked if we wanted to come stay with him for the weekend. Our puppy wasn't housebroken yet and couldn't be alone for that long, and we don't have anyone to watch the pup, so we asked if we could bring him with us. After a little convincing, my dad agreed. We get to his house and everything was fine with the entire visit. I actually had a good time. Now for the part where I might be the jerk. My pup is from a litter of 6. My older brother got my pup's sister and found out she had sarcoptic mange, which is a type of mange dogs can get from a parasite called scabies. We thought my pup had it because his ears were crusty and started to split. I called my father and told him about my brother's dog and how my pup might have had it. He went on a whole rant telling me I should be ashamed of myself for bringing an animal around my 8-month-old daughter and called me a shitty father. I was honestly kind of shocked and responded with, "You have no right to tell me how I am as a father when you have 6 kids and only 2 talk to you." Me and my 13-year-old brother. He told me I was neurotic and told me to go frick myself. I just didn't respond at that point. A couple of weeks later, I saw that Godzilla Minus One is on Netflix, and me and my father are huge Godzilla fans, so I try to call him, no answer. So I try again a few hours later, no answer. I called my little brother just to find out my dad blocked me, and it was because he doesn't put up with nonsense. So I told him and his wife that my family will no longer be a part of his cultish family and how I will not allow my daughter to be around that kind of toxicity. He just yelled and told my little brother he was no longer allowed to talk to me. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, you're the idiot for wanting to expose your child to this man. You described how he ghosted you as a child, didn't provide for you, is mean and spiteful, and stole from you. Why exactly would you even want a person like that in your child's life? He did you a favor by blocking you, the first thing he probably ever did to help you. Comment 2. Remember all the times your father made you a promise to go somewhere or buy you something special you wanted? And remember how disappointed you were when he didn't do it? Why would you want to put your little girl through that when he disappoints her the same way? Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. After my dad blocked me, things got pretty tense. I decided to focus on my little family and try to move on. Kay and I were doing our best to keep things normal for our daughter, but it was hard not to think about the whole situation with my dad. One day, out of the blue, my mom called me. She said she had something important to tell me and asked if we could meet up. I was curious and a bit worried, so I agreed. When we met, she told me that my dad had been diagnosed with a serious illness. She didn't know all the details, but it was something that could potentially be life-threatening. I was shocked and didn't know how to feel. On one hand, he had been a terrible father, but on the other hand, he was still my dad. I decided to reach out to him one more time, despite everything that had happened. I called my little brother again and asked him to pass a message to our dad, letting him know that I wanted to talk. A few days later, my dad unblocked me and called. The conversation was awkward at first, but eventually, we started talking about his illness. He told me he had been diagnosed with cancer and that the prognosis wasn't good. He apologized for how he had treated me and my siblings over the years and said he wanted to make things right before it was too late. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to forgive him, but another part of me was still angry. I told him I needed some time to think about everything. Over the next few days, I talked to Kay about it, and she encouraged me to try and mend things with my dad. If not for me, then for our daughter. She reminded me that holding on to anger wouldn't help anyone, and that it might be good for our daughter to know her grandfather, even if it was just for a short time. I decided to give it a shot. I called my dad and told him I was willing to try and rebuild our relationship. We agreed to meet up and talk things through. When we met, he seemed genuinely remorseful and admitted that he had made a lot of mistakes. He told me about his own childhood and how his father had been hurtful and neglectful. It didn't excuse his behavior, but it helped me understand where he was coming from. As we talked, I realized that my dad had been carrying a lot of pain and anger from his past, and he had taken it out on us. He said he wanted to be a better person and asked for my help. I agreed to support him, but I made it clear that he needed to take responsibility for his actions and make amends with my siblings as well. Over the next couple of weeks, my dad started reaching out to my siblings and apologizing for how he had treated them. Some of them were more receptive than others, but it was a start. He also began attending therapy to work through his issues and learn how to be a better father and grandfather. During this time, I noticed a change in my dad. He seemed more open and willing to listen. He even started spending time with our daughter, and she quickly warmed up to him. It was bittersweet to see them together, knowing that his time might be limited. One day, while we were visiting my dad, he pulled me aside and handed me an old photo album. He said it was something he had been meaning to give me for a long time. As I flipped through the pages, I saw pictures of my dad as a young man, smiling and happy. There were also pictures of my grandparents and other family members I had never met. It was a glimpse into a part of my dad's life that I had never known. As I looked at the photos, I realized that my dad had been a different person once, before life had taken its toll on him. It made me sad to think about how much he had changed and how much he had lost. But it also gave me hope that he could still change, even if it was just a little bit. In the midst of all this, Kay and I were dealing with our own challenges. Our puppy's mange had cleared up, but we were still struggling to balance work, school, and taking care of our daughter. It was exhausting, but we were determined to make it work. We leaned on each other for support and tried to find moments of joy in the chaos. One evening, after a particularly tough day, Kay and I sat down and talked about our future. We both agreed that we wanted to create a better life for our daughter, one that was free from the pain and anger that had plagued our own childhoods. We made a pact to always communicate openly and honestly with each other and to never let our past dictate our future. As the weeks went by, my dad's health continued to decline. It was hard to watch, but I was grateful for the time we had together. We talked about everything, our past, our hopes for the future, and the things we wished we had done differently. It was painful, but it was also healing. In the end, my dad passed away peacefully, surrounded by family. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing that we had finally started to mend our relationship, but also knowing that it was too late to fully repair the damage. I was grateful for the time we had, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss for the relationship we could have had. After my dad's funeral, my siblings and I gathered to share memories and support each other. It was a difficult time, but it also brought us closer together. We realized that we needed to be there for each other and to break the cycle of pain and anger that had been passed down through our family. As I look back on everything that has happened, I feel a mix of emotions. I'm sad for the time we lost, but I'm also hopeful for the future. I know that my dad's illness and passing have brought our family closer together and have given us a chance to heal. It's not a perfect ending, but it's a start. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for cutting off my racist sister and moving across the country to protect my family? Why, 34-year-old female, have been married to my husband, 35-year-old male, for 6 years. My sister and I, 29-year-old female, just started to communicate again after I went no contact with all of my family. For context, I grew up in an hurtful household. I would constantly get yelled at and made to be seen as the terror child. My sister, on the other hand, could do no wrong. With her being the youngest, it was always extremely hard to get anything done if it didn't revolve around her. My parents would often miss important events in my life because she decided to make something up. Well, I went no contact when I was 16, moved out of my parents' house, and I have never looked back. I met my husband when I was in college. We immediately started talking and we fell for each other. We married shortly after we both graduated. Now he's not the same race as I am. I am Caucasian, and he's Mexican. I've always been told by my mother that I should never marry outside of our race as it could cause problems later on. Fast forward to last weekend. I randomly got a call from a number I didn't know. It was my sister. She had asked if we could chat, and I said okay, but I wasn't going to welcome her back easily. Well, last night I invited her over to my place to have dinner. She decided to bring bags with her to try to stay the night. I told her no way, and I only invited her for dinner. She said fine and put her bags back inside her car. My husband was helping me cook some fajitas. We always have something special for dinner each night. He loves to cook. He gets it from his mother. Anyway, when my sister met my husband, she immediately stepped back and pulled me aside. She very loudly whispered that he's not white and that our parents wouldn't approve of this. I told her that it's not her nor their place to decide who I marry. And if she has a problem, she can leave. She said she'd be quiet, and we all sat down to eat. Everything was going okay until she made a discriminatory comment about the fact that he's Mexican, and of course we'd have fajitas. I told her that is enough and to leave my house. She started yelling at me and told me that I'm the one who married a racial slur. I screamed at her to get out and to never come back. I blocked her on everything and apologized to my husband for her behavior. I've already gotten several text messages from relatives telling me how horrible I am and that I should apologize to my sister. So am I the idiot? Now for an update, thank you all for your kindness and your suggestions. Today has been an emotional roller coaster. So for starters, to everyone's concerns about me saying he's Mexican, him and his family immigrated from Mexico when he was 2 years old, and they've all become American citizens. So that is why I said he's Mexican and I'm Caucasian. Secondly, I did block my sister on everything. I thought she would have changed considering she has been away from my parents for 8 years, but obviously not. And I have explained my situation to all of my relatives, some of which were understanding, but most of them basically shunned me for who I am. So I did in fact block all of those people. I'm working on changing my phone number. Also the ones who said she knows where I live now, we are in the process of moving across the country to be with his family. So that's the only reason why I did invite her, because otherwise she wouldn't have been able to see me one last time. I didn't tell them anything about us moving. I also just found out from a doctor's appointment that I'm pregnant with our first child, and I couldn't be happier. My family has always had slight discriminatory undertones to what they've said, but they've never gotten this far. I appreciate all of your support and your suggestions. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's often hard to wholeheartedly support a 16-year-old moving out of their parents' home and going no contact. But wow, this story proves that some people really have to. Congratulations on escaping your family and building one with your husband, not the idiot. Comment 2. I would gladly leave bags of my dog's poop on fire at your family members' doorsteps in exchange for an invite to the next fajita night. Not the idiot. They can all get screwed, and I hope they're eating lousy TV dinners full of microplastics. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all of this. So a lot has happened in the past month, and I need to get it all off my chest. First off, we did go through with the move across the country to be closer to my husband's family. The move itself was stressful, but we managed to get everything packed and shipped without too many issues. We're now settling into our new home, and it's been a relief to be surrounded by people who genuinely care about us. My husband's family has been incredibly supportive, especially with the news of my pregnancy. They've been helping us get everything ready for the baby, and it's been a huge weight off my shoulders. However, things took a turn when my sister somehow found out about our move. I'm not sure how she got the information, but she showed up at our new place unannounced. She was crying and begging for forgiveness, saying she had nowhere else to go. My husband and I were torn. On one hand, I wanted to believe she was sincere and give her another chance. On the other hand, I couldn't forget the hurtful things she said and did. We decided to let her stay for one night, but I made it clear that this was not a permanent arrangement. That night, we had a long conversation. She apologized for her behavior and admitted that she had been struggling with her own issues, including a recent breakup and losing her job. She said she felt lost and didn't know where else to turn. I felt a pang of sympathy, but I also knew that I couldn't let her disrupt our lives again. I told her that while I appreciated her apology, she needed to find her own way and that we couldn't offer her a place to stay. The next morning, she left, and I thought that would be the end of it. But a few days later, I started receiving messages from unknown numbers. It turns out my sister had been telling our extended family that I had abandoned her in her time of need. The messages were filled with guilt-tripping and accusations, and it was clear that my sister had painted me as the villain. I was furious and hurt. I had tried to help her, but it seemed like nothing I did was ever enough. To make matters worse, my husband's job situation became uncertain. His company announced layoffs, and we were worried he might be affected. The stress of the move, the pregnancy, and now the potential job loss was overwhelming. We had to make some tough decisions about our finances and future plans. We cut back on expenses and started looking for other job opportunities, just in case. Amidst all this chaos, I had a scare with the pregnancy. I started experiencing severe cramps and had to rush to the hospital. Thankfully, everything turned out to be fine, but it was a wake-up call. I realized I needed to focus on my health and well-being, not just for myself, but for the baby as well. My husband was incredibly supportive, and we decided to prioritize our family above all else. As we navigated these challenges, I couldn't help but reflect on my relationship with my sister and my family. Growing up, I always felt like the black sheep, and it seemed like nothing had changed. My sister's actions and the family's reactions only reinforced that feeling. I started to wonder if I would ever truly be free from their toxic influence. One night, my husband and I sat down and had a heart-to-heart conversation. He reminded me that we were building our own family now, and we had the power to create a loving and supportive environment for our child. He encouraged me to focus on the positive aspects of our life and to let go of the negativity from my past. It was a difficult pill to swallow, but I knew he was right. We decided to take a break from social media and limit our contact with anyone who brought negativity into our lives. It was a liberating experience. We started spending more quality time together, exploring our new city and preparing for the baby. My husband found a new job that offered better stability, and things started to look up. In the midst of all this, I received a letter from my mother. It was unexpected, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to read it. But curiosity got the better of me. The letter was filled with apologies and regret. She admitted that she had made mistakes and that she wanted to make amends. She asked for a chance to be a part of my life again, especially with the baby on the way. I was conflicted. Part of me wanted to believe that people could change, but another part of me was wary of letting her back in. I discussed it with my husband, and we decided to take things slow. I wrote back to my mother, setting clear boundaries and expressing my concerns. I told her that if she truly wanted to be a part of our lives, she needed to respect our decisions and show genuine effort in changing her behavior. As we wait for her response, I can't help but feel a mix of hope and apprehension. This past month has been pretty tough of emotions, but it has also been a period of growth and reflection. I've learned that it's okay to prioritize my own well-being and that of my family. I've also realized that while it's important to give people a chance, it's equally important to protect myself from further hurt. Thank you all for reading and for your continued support. Am I the idiot for confronting my meddling mother-in-law after she ignored our parenting choices? Why? 25-year-old male and my wife, 23-year-old female, met and knew we were meant for each other. A year into our relationship, I proposed to her. The moment I married my wife, I knew I was in for a wild ride with her mother. She was a woman of strong opinions and an even stronger voice, never shy to share her thoughts, especially when it came to me. The first time I met her, she eyed me up and down like I was a sheep at the market. "So you're the one who's been courting my daughter. I hope you're not planning on living off her good graces." I barely managed a polite smile, already feeling the sweat trickle down my back. Every Sunday, we'd go over to her house for dinner, and every Sunday it was the same routine. My mother-in-law would critique my clothes, my job, and even the way I buttered my bread. "Are you sure you know how to do that? You're making a right mess of it," she'd say, as if I hadn't been buttering bread my whole life. One particular evening stands out in my memory. My wife and I had just announced that we were expecting our first child. I was over the moon, but my mother-in-law's reaction was less than enthusiastic. "Well, I hope you're ready for sleepless nights and dirty nappies. It's not all fun and games, you know," she said with a stern look that could curdle milk. As the months went by, her comments became even more frequent. "Do you really think you can handle being a father? You can barely keep the house in order," she'd exclaim, shaking her head. I tried my best to stay patient for my wife's sake, but it wasn't easy. When our little one finally arrived, I was determined to prove my mother-in-law wrong. I changed nappies, rocked the baby to sleep, and even managed to cook a few meals without burning them. But no matter what I did, it never seemed to be enough. "Are you sure you're holding the baby right? You don't want to drop her," she'd say, hovering over me like a hawk. She always wanted us to formula feed our daughter, but my wife wanted to breastfeed, and her mother seemed to have a problem with that. But she never said why. One day, I'd had enough. I walked into my daughter's room, and there was my mother-in-law giving her formula. I grabbed the bottle off her and asked her, "What the heck are you doing?" I was trying to keep my cool. "Why are you giving our daughter formula?" I said, really angry. "My granddaughter needs to be on formula so I can take her to my house," she said it with such confidence, but that just infuriated me more. I said to my mother-in-law, "I don't know who you think you are, but that is my daughter, and my wife decided she will be breastfed. If you don't agree with that, leave." I took my daughter out of her arms. My mother-in-law gave me a disgusted look, as if I had called her every name under the sun. She just turned away and left. My wife scolded me, telling me I was too harsh. Am I the jerk for finally snapping at my mother-in-law after she kept trying to micromanage my baby? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. "Not the idiot. You don't just have a million problem, you have a wife problem too. Why is she allowing her mother to speak to and treat you like this? You've handled this all amazingly, to be honest. You need to talk to your wife too, though, and make clear how you feel and how her mother's actions and words are affecting you. Your mother-in-law sounds painful to deal with. Don't let her back in your home until she learns to respect you and your boundaries." Comment 2. "Not the idiot. You could perhaps have tried to keep your cool and gone with the firm request for her to leave before breaking out the curse words. But the bottom line is that your mother-in-law is disrespecting your agency as parents and overreaching on an important decision. If she can't adapt to your rules, she needs to realize she will be deprioritized, as this time is special for your young family to find its feet." Now for the update. Thanks for reading the last post. So after that big blow-up with my mother-in-law, things got even more complicated. The next day, my wife and I had a long talk about what happened. She was upset that I had snapped at her mom, but I explained that I felt like I had no choice. I told her that I was tired of being treated like I didn't know how to take care of our daughter. She listened, but I could tell she was torn between me and her mom. The following day, my mother-in-law called my wife and asked her to come over for a chat. My wife went, and when she came back, she looked really stressed. She told me that her mom had said she was just trying to help and that she didn't mean to overstep. My wife asked me to apologize to her mom to keep the peace. I didn't want to, but I agreed for my wife's sake. When we went over to my mother-in-law's house, I apologized. She accepted it, but I could tell she wasn't really sorry for what she did. She just gave me a look that said, "I won." I felt like I was back to square one, but I didn't want to cause more problems. A couple of days later, something happened that changed everything. My wife and I were at home and she got a call from her mom. She looked really worried and told me that her mom had fallen and hurt her leg. We rushed over to her house, and when we got there, we found her on the floor, unable to get up. We called an ambulance and they took her to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor said she had broken her leg and would need surgery. My wife was really upset, and I could see how much she cared about her mom. I realized that despite all the issues we had, my mother-in-law was still a big part of our lives. I decided to put my feelings aside and support my wife through this. After the surgery, my mother-in-law had to stay in the hospital for a few days. My wife and I took turns visiting her and making sure she was okay. During one of my visits, my mother-in-law and I had a heart-to-heart talk. She told me that she was scared of losing control and that she just wanted the best for her daughter and granddaughter. I told her that I understood, but that she needed to trust us to make the right decisions for our family. That conversation changed everything for me. I realized that my mother-in-law wasn't trying to be mean. She was just scared and didn't know how to express it. I decided to be more patient with her and try to understand where she was coming from. When my mother-in-law came home from the hospital, she needed help with everything. My wife and I took care of her, and it was a tough time for all of us. But it also brought us closer together. My mother-in-law started to see that I was capable of taking care of my family, and she began to trust me more. One day, while I was helping her with her physical therapy exercises, she told me about her own childhood. She grew up in a strict household where she was always told what to do and how to do it. She said that she didn't want her daughter to go through the same thing, but she realized that she had been doing the same thing to us. It was a big moment for both of us, and I felt like we finally understood each other. As my mother-in-law recovered, things started to get better. She stopped criticizing everything I did and started to appreciate my efforts. My wife noticed the change too, and it made our relationship stronger. We still had our disagreements, but we were able to talk about them without getting into big fights. One evening, my wife and I were sitting on the couch talking about everything that had happened. She told me that she was proud of how I handled the situation with her mom and that she appreciated my patience. I told her that I was just trying to do what was best for our family. We both agreed that we needed to work together to make things better. Looking back, I can see that the whole experience brought us closer as a family. It wasn't easy, but it taught us a lot about patience, understanding, and communication. My mother-in-law and I still have our moments, but we have a better relationship now. And most importantly, my wife and I are stronger than ever. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.